If you've got precious moments figurines, Beanie Babies, or old collector plates packed away somewhere, you've probably assumed they're worth real money by now, maybe even part of your retirement plan. For most of what people are holding on to, that's not true anymore, and I'd rather tell you that now, while there's still time to plan around it, than let you find out the hard way when you actually need the money most. Take those precious moments figurines first, those soft-eyed porcelain children that came with certificates promising they'd only grow more valuable over time. One woman insured her 7,000-piece collection for $110,000, a number she genuinely believed reflected what she'd built. When she actually tried to sell it, a dealer wouldn't even take it, and what's supposedly a rare piece from that same line was sitting listed online for $8.50. The company made so many of these, in so many nearly identical variations, released year after year with only small design tweaks, that the market simply drowned in supply, and no amount of careful display in a glass cabinet changes that math. Even figurines marked as limited or retired, phrases that were meant to signal scarcity, were often produced in numbers large enough that the word limited stopped meaning very much at all. Beanie Babies tell almost the exact same story, just faster and louder. In the late 1990s, people genuinely treated these as a real investment category, buying doubles specifically to keep one sealed in plastic for resale later. A handful of truly rare early tags still bring real money today, but the vast majority, the ones sitting in bins in millions of American attics, are worth $1 or $2, sometimes less than what a thrift store would even bother pricing them at. The company itself kept manufacturing new versions constantly, which is exactly what killed any lasting scarcity the earlier ones might have had. Even the plastic tag protectors people bought to keep the paper tags in mint condition are usually worth more today as a small nostalgic novelty than the actual Beanie Baby sitting inside most of them. Franklin Mint collectibles carry a different kind of disappointment, because these were marketed almost like a financial product rather than a toy. Commemorative coin sets, presidential medallions, detailed die-cast cars, all sold with certificates of authenticity that implied real investment value. A silver presidential medallion set that originally sold for around $260 now struggles to bring $65 on the resale market. And in plenty of cases, the only guaranteed value left is the melt value of whatever actual silver content the piece contains. The company produced so much volume at such scale that true scarcity was never really possible in the first place, no matter what the certificate said. Even the die-cast car replicas, sold as detailed museum-quality models, tend to sell today for a fraction of what collectors originally paid, mostly to buyers who want them for display rather than as any kind of investment. Hummel figurines carry more genuine craftsmanship than most of what we've covered so far, hand-painted, based on real drawings by a German nun, and that history does matter to real collectors. But even here, the honest math works against most people's expectations. Somewhere between 60 and 70% of every Hummel ever produced still survives today, which means the common figures almost everyone has aren't the rare exception, they're the overwhelming rule. Real value still exists in this category, but it's concentrated in a small number of early, limited pieces, not spread evenly across a whole shelf of them. That same split between the rare and the common shows up again with Cabbage Patch Kids dolls, though here I actually have mixed news instead of just bad news. Most of the dolls sitting in attics and closets today, the ordinary ones from the mid-1980s onward, sell for around $30, which is honestly disappointing for something a family may have paid real money for at the height of the craze. But the earliest dolls, the hand-signed originals made before the company partnered with a major toy manufacturer, have sold for anywhere from $500 to several $1,000s, and a few exceptionally rare early examples have brought closer to 10,000 at auction. The difference almost always comes down to the signature, the birth certificate, and whether the doll still has its original adoption papers, which is a strange thing to say out loud about a toy. But that's exactly what collectors are checking. That same hope that early or original pieces would eventually pay off is exactly what drove people toward Longaberger baskets too, and the company itself is gone now, which usually helps collectibles, not hurts them. People spent real money on these throughout the 1990s, sometimes hundreds of dollars per basket, genuinely believing they were building something that would only grow in value once the company eventually stopped making them. When Longaberger actually did close its doors in 2018, that should have been the moment. Instead, most common baskets sell for $10 to $40 today, a fraction of what people originally paid, because so many were made and so many households are downsizing all at once that the market simply can't absorb the supply. A small number of early, signed, or limited pieces still bring real money, particularly a full JW collection miniature set with its original glass display cabinet, which is sold for well over $1,000 when kept complete. But the everyday market baskets most people own, the laundry baskets and picnic baskets that made up the bulk of what actually sold, are not that, and no amount of original packaging changes what a market flooded with supply is willing to pay. Thomas Kinkade prints and plates hide a particularly painful lesson inside them, because the packaging around them was designed to feel like a serious investment. Reportedly, roughly 1 in every 20 American households owned a piece of his work at the peak of his popularity, which tells you everything about how limited these limited editions actually were. A Bradford Exchange plate featuring his cottage scenes typically sells for $12 to $30 today. Even the canvas prints, the ones people were told carried real value because of hand-applied paint highlights, mostly bring $500 to $800 at best, a small fraction of what many people originally paid for them, and that's assuming the piece is a genuine hand-embellished edition rather than a plain mass print. Some of those numbered canvas editions originally retailed for $600 to as much as $10,000 apiece, which makes the gap between what was paid and what's actually recoverable today one of the widest of everything we've covered. Norman Rockwell collector plates follow almost the identical pattern, which says something important about this entire category of collectible. Rockwell's actual paintings and illustrations are genuinely beloved and historically significant. The plates made from his imagery, sold through mail-order catalogs for decades with the same official-looking certificates, are a completely different story. A full set that once cost real money now typically brings around $10 if you're lucky enough to find a buyer at all, because the plates were never scarce, only marketed as though they were. It's worth pausing here to actually explain what a certificate of authenticity does and doesn't promise, because that piece of paper is doing more emotional work than it was ever designed to do. All it actually confirms is that a piece was produced by the company named on it, in roughly the edition size stated at the time. It says nothing about how many other collectors want it today, and it never guaranteed appreciation, no matter how official the language on it sounded or how many gold borders were printed around the edge. Companies were legally careful about this, even while their marketing implied the opposite. Reading the fine print on one of these certificates now, decades later, is often the fastest way to understand exactly why the promise never held up. Sports cards work on a completely different kind of proof, grading rather than paperwork, but the underlying lesson ends up exactly the same. And if you've got a shoebox of old sports cards saved from decades of birthday money and allowance, I have to be honest here too. A small handful of specific rookie cards from specific years have genuinely sold for serious money, and that's real. But the bulk commons, the stacks of ordinary players from the late 1980s and early 1990s that so many families saved by the thousands, are worth very little individually, sometimes just pennies each, because everyone saved them, and a card that everyone kept was never actually rare to begin with. Card companies printed so heavily during that stretch specifically because demand seemed endless at the time, and that same overproduction is exactly why a shoebox from those years rarely turns into the payday people remember hoping for. Here's the thread running through every single one of these, and it's worth sitting with for a moment. None of them failed because they weren't beautiful, or well-made, or genuinely cherished while they were being collected. They failed for one specific, repeated reason. They were manufactured in enormous volume while being marketed as though they were scarce, and a certificate of authenticity was never the same thing as actual rarity. Real value in any collectible category almost always concentrates in a small handful of genuinely limited pieces, while the bulk of what was mass-produced simply becomes common, no matter how official the paperwork looks sitting in the box beside it. Even the categories with a real exception hiding inside them, like the earliest Cabbage Patch dolls or the rare Longaberger miniatures, only reward the small fraction that was actually scarce from the start, never the ordinary run that everyone else owns too. I know that's not the answer most people watching this were hoping for, and I'm not saying any of it to take something away from you. What you built with real care, and that part was never wasted. But if part of your retirement thinking has quietly included the assumption that this collection would help cover a gap somewhere down the road, it's worth adjusting that plan now, gently, while there's still time to plan around the real number instead of the hoped-for one. My husband still has a shelf of these exact commemorative coin sets he swears are going to fund a cruise someday, and every time I bring this up, he just tells me to wait and see. If any of this stung a little, that's not me trying to be unkind. It's me trying to save you from finding out the hard way at the worst possible moment. Tell me down in the comments if you've got any of these sitting in your own house, and whether you've ever actually tried to sell one, because I have a feeling a lot of you already know exactly what I'm talking about. And if you're not subscribed yet, hit that button and turn on notifications, because there's another one of these coming soon, and it might be the one that actually surprises you in the other direction.